Hi everyone, my name is Samar Miled. I'm from Tunisia, but I'm currently in the United States, in North Carolina. I used to be a professor for a long time in Tunisia, and then I came here to start a PhD. At Duke University, I work on post-colonial, decolonial literature and the representation of resistance and rebellions in literature and arts, especially in North Africa. So how the topic that I'm supposed to talk about is how does education tackle civic engagement gaps? Well, I was thinking, what's the difference between an activist and an educator? Well, you don't have to be an educator to be an activist, but you are somehow an activist if you are an educator. Let me explain. Education builds minds, allows kids from all over the country to have access to the same amount of knowledge, regardless of their race, gender, or social class. In Tunisia, for example, everyone has access to knowledge equally and for free. And if young people are losing trust with the government, maybe they can trust independent individuals like teachers, who are still part of the system, but who are leaders on a micro level and on a smaller, much more private scale, which makes it easier for trust to be established. Educators can be considered as the third parent who brings a different vision, especially when parents themselves are unable to raise responsible kids or when they transfer their own political, civic, and social unawareness to their kids, and more specifically in underprivileged communities, or in the case of the absence of the parents. So the role of an educator is to give a second chance to kids who are raised in precarious conditions, where poverty and immediate needs prevail, and the sense of belonging to a bigger nation is not sensed as a priority. However, the nature of the knowledge that the educational system in Tunisia, for instance, is trying to instill in our students' minds is questionable sometimes. Most of the time, it's old-fashioned. We do use civic education and history in our classrooms. It's a course to raise awareness and to talk about citizenship and responsibility, but we don't really always involve the student in the conversation. Our methods are interesting, but not inclusive enough somehow. That needs to change, and we have been asking for reforms for a very long time. So when are we going to include arts and politically and socially oriented texts in our classrooms? Why don't we do that? But you know, as Melissa said earlier, due to the political instability that we've been facing lately, reforms can be implemented. I mean, we've had 3 different potential governments in the last 9 months. We lost 9 months of project making and reforms. So how can we open up the dialogue in classrooms? How can we disentangle taboos? And here, honestly, I'm thinking about the United States, for example. I spent the summer here, and after this hectic summer, the questions that I have in mind, are we addressing systemic racism and racial segregation in classrooms, for example? Are we talking about these issues? Even in the United States, I mean. And secondly, and I'm just going to ask a few questions here and then leave it for the conversation because I don't really have the answer. If we accept the fact that the role of teachers is fundamental in building responsible and engaged future adults, well, we're not always sure that all teachers share the same Republican democratic values that one would want to spread. So the training of teachers themselves deserves to be looked at more closely. Who are our teachers today? What is their background? Is it safe and ethical to control educators before they become educators? What kind of education did they receive, and how can we trust them with our future generation? Here, I think I'm done. Thank you.